go then. Yeah, here we go.
You hold what you have and it's tough, and there you go as Nervaez drops off, and still 3k to the top of the climb, and this is where he really needs to make it count. The last kilometre of this climb, it shallows ever so slightly, and that will bring it back to the likes of Filippo Ganna and the rest, but it is Tadej Pogačar, and he's opening a gap, and if they let him go now they might never see him again. It's just a few bike lengths, and Filippo Ganna crawling all over that bike, staying focused, but can he get back up onto the wheel of Tadej Pogačar, and can Mathieu van der Poel, can he react to that and fix that little problem?
Yeah, so you've got Pogačar, Ganna, Van der Poel, and
Gregoire has made it on as well. Yes, superb job done by Romain Gregoire as he latches on, and this is the exclusive group on the Cipressa. The rest would be there if they could, but right now Tadej Pogačar needs to try and make this happen, and he is pushing for glory at 25k, 24k from the line.
Yeah, you could see that. So Gregoire's in trouble now, and Ganna's in trouble. So you know that when Van der Poel came around Ganna there, he sensed that he couldn't follow anymore. You know, we saw Pidcock in, I think it was 5th position in this attack, and he couldn't follow. And just look at the damage that's happened.
It's an absolutely fascinating development, because now you've got the last 2 world champions and the last 2 riders who've dominated classics racing, one-day racing in recent years, and it's everyone's trying to fix huge issues here.
No, so Ganna's back.
Ganna's back on.
Yeah.
Gradient came back to him maybe a little bit.
I don't think Gregoire's going to come back, because this part is it's more like false sliding. There's quite a lot of wind from the side, so once you lose the wheel, you'll gap really quickly.
Still a bit more Cipressa to deal with here. How much does Tadej Pogačar hold what he has, settle in for the fight to come on the Poggio, and what indeed will Mathieu van der Poel and Filippo Ganna, the 3 hot favourites actually before this event, are in prime position right now. Behind plenty of teams floundering. 3 teams though will be very content with this current development.
So yeah, I imagine that it's in Van der Poel's interest to work here. I don't think Ganna can work. So if they want to go to the finish with these 3, you know, Van der Poel's going to have to help Pogačar out just over the top here. You see the difference in speed from back to Gregoire. He's just stopped.
The pain of it. That is a huge gap. And Ganna has been distanced once again just as they approach the top, and still quite a way to go, 1.5 kilometres to the top, so problematic for Filippo Ganna, world's most preeminent time trialist, you might say. Certainly the biggest name in world time trialing. Might have a little bit of solo riding to do if he's to get back on to these riders on the descent, and indeed he's up against 2 of the best descenders in the business, and maybe doesn't have quite the same reputation in descending and the technical aspects of the sport, but he's not giving up on getting back in here, and it looks as if he's just about going to be able to make the junction. They have a little look around and they're going to welcome him back in. Maybe, just maybe, it might be valuable to have him there. A smoother tarmac. Are we going to get a 39.1 km/h average speed ride up the Poggio? He's going early. He's decided he wants to get it done as early as possible. The first response comes from Mathieu van der Poel, and already Filippo Ganna is floundering down to 2. Can Ganna stay in this one all the way to the point where it eases ever so slightly? The gap is continuing to open, but it limpet like. Mathieu van der Poel stays on the wheel of Tadej Pogačar.
Yeah, so Ganna is now at 15 metres, and unless he gets out of the saddle, it's going to keep going out from here, because Pogačar's fully on it again.
Tadej Pogačar continuing to be almost disdainful of the presence of Mathieu van der Poel, not looking around. Just as I say, sneaks a little look to find out what sort of damage he's done to Filippo Ganna. Significant is the answer, and it's all down to 1 against 1. Mathieu van der Poel is just going to ride this hill, absolutely welded to the back wheel of Tadej Pogačar. 1 against 1.
Yeah.
UAE team Emirates. It's not to Koenig.
I'd be amazed if Van der Poel comes past on this section. Maybe nearer the top when he knows he's survived the next couple of parts, but certainly in his position you wouldn't really want to put yourself in front to kind of be jumped by Pogačar later on.
He's not completely out of it, is he? Any sort of hesitation when they on the other side of this hill, always assuming if that's the gap at the top of the hill, then Filippo Ganna is still in this one to win it, and he's not giving up on it just yet. The camera, I suspect, the lens foreshortening the gap between them. That's a better representation of it, but still this is worth fighting for Filippo Ganna. Floundering his way to the top of this. There's still 2.5 kilometers to go. It's a big ring climb. It is a climb that well, doesn't entirely eliminate a rider of his relative physical stature, physically large stature.
You see Pogačar just slowing down because he wants Van der Poel to come past, but you know, in Van der Poel's shoes, you wouldn't go past. It's
Ganna's coming back.
Yeah, Ganna's coming back only because they've slowed down in the front. You just know the next acceleration is going to be the same thing again.
Back, hits it before. That would break your heart, wouldn't it? Filippo Ganna almost back on, and Tadej Pogačar knew it, and he knew that he was going to attack there, as indeed did Mathieu van der Poel. He wasn't hoodwinked into rolling through and making himself a little bit vulnerable. Stays on the wheel, and there's a little bit of a gap developing. At the first crack starts to develop as Mathieu van der Poel drops a couple of bike lengths behind. Tadej Pogačar needs to get on the pedals quickly. It gives you a sense of just how fast they go up this climb, that they're having to brake fairly heavily for these hairpin turns. Ganna tries to stay in it and keep that bungee cord at around about, what, 30-40 metres. Yeah. Meanwhile, the group behind has closed down a little bit. That little bit of hesitation from Tadej Pogačar has allowed the chase group to get to within 42 seconds. Are they still in this bike race? Could there possibly be a further twist in this one?
No, I don't think that anybody's going to come back to Pogačar and Van der Poel in the front. I think actually, you know, that looking at the way that Pogačar were on that corner and was blocked a little bit by the motorbikes, if that hadn't happened, maybe Van der Poel would have been in a little bit more difficulty.
Well, in your day, there probably would have been about 40 motorbikes there crowded around the leaders. Yeah.
It is quite often in Milano-Sanremo that you know, the motorbikes get in the way on this part of the race because they want to get the pictures. You see another acceleration from Pogačar. He doesn't want Ganna to come back.
It doesn't challenge Mathieu van der Poel too much. It does serve to gain a few seconds. That first, or at least most recent acceleration from Tadej Pogačar, adding, what, 4 or 5 seconds to the advantage of the riders out front. Ganna sitting at that 6-second margin again, still very much in it to win it right now. And now out of the saddle, Tadej Pogačar, absolutely full tilt. So we've still got a kilometre. This is precisely where he went last year. And, well, everyone was able to answer the question, including Mathieu van der Poel on that occasion. And once again, looks as if Mathieu van der Poel has answered that one. Yeah, are we going to have a one-on-one sprint here?
Yeah, I think we're going to have these two in the front. It doesn't look like Van der Poel was going to lose the wheel at this moment. You know, if you were really struggling, you'd have been out the saddle the same amount of time as Pogačar, but he sat down slightly quicker.
He looks unruffled at the best of times, but he doesn't look. The only point where he's looked like there was a gap opening up was just before that corner where you pointed out he ended up. Pogačar ended up at the back of the motorbike. But otherwise,
I wouldn't say he's unruffled at the moment. You know,
it's a bit strong, but yeah.
He's definitely glad to see the top of the climb.
Ooh. Oh, and we weren't expecting that, and look at that. Mathieu van der Poel tries to throw one in of his own, and Tadej Pogačar wasn't expecting that. Rolling the shoulders a little bit, looking frustrated, but maybe he was tired, and Mathieu van der Poel has sensed something, and he says, you know what, I'm not waiting for the sprint here, because Pogačar has an excellent sprint, and he opens up a few bike lengths of an advantage, and Tadej Pogačar's absolutely hell-bent on getting back into the wheel. He just about makes it in, but that was slightly unexpected.
Yeah, that hurt Pogačar for sure.
With a kilometre to go, and then they've got that left and right, and on to Via Roma. And Filippo Ganna, laser-focused, only one tactic for him. All the watts he's got have got to carry him onto the wheel of those two riders. Then he can think about it, but got a mile of racing, 1,600 metres to get back on, and they don't want to let him, and it's going to be incredibly close. Ganna's continuing to close it, and this is making, I suppose, the tactics between the other two riders a little bit more simple, because they've got to ride it all the way to the line here as a duo.
Yeah, I still think Ganna's going to come back, because Pogačar will not want to lead out from Van der Poel. So ideally for the two in the front, if Ganna comes back, they put him on the front, and then they can decide who's going to win between those two. Which I think, natural selection would be the two strongest riders.
Well, after a full day of racing, 289 kilometres in total, it is going to come down to this. Filippo Ganna just about on here as we wind our way through the final couple of bends and head towards Via Roma. It's 3 up for the win. And Mathieu van der Poel, the 2023 winner, is going to lead them into the final run to the line. They'll have a little winding promenade. The group behind are not going to get involved here. Filippo Ganna got on in time, but not in a position to try and roll them for the late attack, so he's going to be involved in the sprint. Tadej Pogačar is going to have the honour, such as it is, of coming from third wheel. And now we've got the long wind up for this one. And Mathieu van der Poel happy enough to, well, I thought he was happy enough to lead it out, but decides to head to the other side of the road. Who's coming up the middle? Who's going left? Who's going right? Mathieu van der Poel, Filippo Ganna. And it's all on from the front as Mathieu van der Poel gets on the pedals first. He's going for a long one. Filippo Ganna that might suit him. Is he going to be able to get on terms? Hasn't got the legs for it. Mathieu van der Poel and Tadej Pogačar is coming with a late run, but is it going to be too little too late? Because Mathieu van der Poel is going to get the win. It's another victory for Mathieu van der Poel as he takes the victory on the Via Roma, and he takes the success, another victory in Milan-Sanremo. Let it out in that break, and Tadej Pogačar did everything possible to try and ditch Mathieu van der Poel. It didn't work out at the end. Indeed, van der Poel threw in a salvo of his own on the Poggio. What an absolutely fabulous edition of this race. It lit up on the Cipressa.